Here we are, Abuelo and the Nieto, number 47, talking Miami sports. We're going to be talking about the Dolphins training camp, some of the injuries. They just signed an offensive lineman, so that's getting some help there, which is needed as they start the preseason next week. The Marlins, they kept Cabrera and Alcantara. They're going to compete, and they just won a series versus the Yankees, doing very well. We'll get into the subject matter of the Marlins. Inter Miami also, of course, competing in the League's Cup, had a tie, and then they won the penalty kick competition against Necaxa. That was Saturday evening. So we'll get into the Inter Miami situation. Basically, signed the contract with Messi already. It's not officially signed, but they have all the terms basically agreed upon. So that's moving in the right direction with Rodrigo De Paul playing a very good game, by the way, Saturday night versus Necaxa. So as Tyler gets a little more hydrated and getting going for our podcast, those are some of the subject matters. Remember, we're everywhere. We're in, of course, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube. We also on X. Abuelo and Nieto is everywhere. We have the Miami Sports Minute during the week. Then we have a podcast that runs usually Friday or Saturday. We're going to be going a little later this week because I was away up in the mountains. So this is a little different this week, Tyler. But we have a lot of talk I like to talk about, and we always start with the number, right?
We start with a number, and this is one that I've been super excited to do. Is probably up there with one of the biggest local legends we've ever seen. So let me know who wore 47 for the Miami Hurricanes.
That was the great Michael Irvin. 12 years in the NFL with the Cowboys, won, three championships with the Cowboys, won the title with the Canes in 87 under Jimmy. Yes, the great Michael Irvin, number 47.
That's right. All right. So moving on to some more football talk. I wanted to know now that they have a week under their belt of training camp. They've been getting some work in. I've heard that Patrick Paul's impressing some people, but overall, what have you heard about some guys that may be stepping up in positions of need?
Well, Sabanea, the guard from Arizona, the second round pick, has been looking very good, even though he went down a little bit in his production this past week. And Grant, the first round pick from Michigan, is doing very well. That's what you expect from him, playing the defensive tackle position. But really, the guys that are really stepping up, and they're the guys that the team really depends upon, because they have done it before and they're great players, and you're supposed to get that production from them. Is Tua and Waddle. Tua and Waddle have looked spectacular. As we were starting the week now, he had not thrown an INT in practice, Tua, so that gives you an idea of the production. Some of the players say something very interesting. Tyler, it says when Tua is playing quarterback, the ball usually does not touch the floor, does not touch the grass. So everything is caught. So this is something important. I think Guaro had to get production. Looking at last year, Hill and Waddle, they were basically under their numbers, and they have to be going if this offense is going to be really productive. We said it's going to we said it what weeks ago. It's going to be tough to be the same as they were in 2023, but they definitely have to be better than they were last year, and they have to be able to run the ball and turn down on one and fourth and one, and that's why they got bigger at the offensive line position. They got a couple of fullbacks, which are 220 and above, that can run the ball inside. So you figure that this offense is going to be a little different than they were in 2023, but I expect them to be definitely better than they were last year. So those are some of the guys that are doing well in the preseason. There is a receiver also, Weiss Jr., a guy that is 6'2". He's got good size, and he was available as an undrafted free agent. and they like him a lot, and he's done very well up to now. Still, the questions are still there regarding the cornerback position. I think that they're gonna have to do a signing, eventually, because you used to have some questions there, losing Cahu, and some of the guys they have lost in the defensive backfield, not having Davis at safety, not yet. He's also hurt. So I think that they'll be getting a corner soon, but the situation with the offensive line, the depth there is important. Austin Jackson got hurt this week, so he will be out probably the entire preseason. McDaniel just said that he should be back for the regular season, though that's why they signed an offensive lineman, which is a number one pick for Seattle, a first round pick a few years back, and he can play guard or tackle. So they need that depth on the offensive line, and definitely they have addressed that this week. Interesting, they'll be playing practice. They'll be practicing with Chicago and with Detroit for the first two games that are away. So they'll probably leave Thursday for Chicago, practice against Chicago Friday, and they'll play the first exhibition game Sunday versus the Bears, and then they'll go to Detroit and probably stay in Detroit a few days, practice with Detroit, and then play the second exhibition game versus the Lions.
And I think you mentioned Hill and Waddle kind of looking like they're getting back to form. I think it's something that people just conveniently forget, or maybe they just leave out as the fact that they were hurt. And I get it, football's a game of injuries. People are battling through pain all the time, but these guys specifically, whose jobs are to be fast and run at full speed at all times, to be the fastest players in the NFL, if you're dealing with lower body injuries, you just can't expect them to be doing that at the same capacity. So, we look at the results from last year, it's almost like, of course, that happened. Why would it not happen if the two most productive and explosive players on this team, known for their speed, are having their speed hindered? So just being able to see them, I was like I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, I was able to see Hill working out in person and just look. I mean, he was the fastest person among 10 of the best receivers in the NFL, and he's moving better than all of them. And Waddle, somebody who that ankle injury, I respect him for playing through it because you can see he kept trying to go out there and fight through it. And it almost might have suited him better to just have taken maybe 4 or 5 weeks off at a time and have come back after that. But he kind of just kept setting himself back throughout the season. So seeing those two guys healthy again, I think is just going to be, when we talk about getting back to 2023, obviously that's a stretch, but I mean, that's the first step, is those your two best guys getting back to where they were. So I'd definitely be encouraged about that for sure. And just moving on to another training camp, few minutes across town, you got the Miami Hurricanes opening up their fall camp, getting things started. Just want to know what you think about and it's specifically, what area of improvement are you looking to see from this team? Obviously, I think defense is the broader, more kind of general thing to say, but it could also be quarterback. It could be some help on, wide receiver, kind of refilling those gaps that are left by guys like Restrepo and, people that left for the draft.
Yes, the offense, are they going to be as explosive as the were last year under Con Ward? Probably not. They don't have the same depth at the receiver position. But you look at that offensive line; it's second to none in NCAA right now. Magoa on the right side, the guy on the left side is 6'7", 6'8", 330, 340. He might be a first round pick. Magoa, the right tackle, is supposed to be a top 15 pick in the draft. So they have a lot of talent. They got Brockermeyer, the center. Uh, so they replace the center that they had last year. The guards are humongous and very good blockers. And then Lofton might be the great differential there for that offense. A guy that can line up as a tight end, but he can line up as a fullback, as a halfback. He catches the ball like a receiver. He's strong, and he was already very good as a freshman. But I think he might be the number one offensive uh, star on that offensive side of the ball for the Canes. But the big question, and you made a mention of it, is the defense, and in particular the defensive backfield. But they have got so many guys that on paper, on paper, we go back to that because they haven't played with the Canes yet. They're under a new defensive coordinator that comes with great credentials. So I think that the defense is going to get better, but that defensive backfield is going to be the key. They play at a higher level. They got to play at a much higher level because they were pretty bad last season against the pass in particular, but they were bad overall. So that defense has to step up. If they do, I think they're going to be very competitive and they have a great chance of being a playoff team. And we'll know early, Tarly. We'll know very early because they got two pretty tough games at the beginning of the season. They'll be here at home, but they got Notre Dame, and they got a couple of weeks after that, they got Florida. So they will know early how good they are. Carson Beck, we have not mentioned him. I know you're not a fan, but Carson Beck is going to be key. He's got to play at a high level. He doesn't necessarily have to be Cam Ward. Maybe there's only one Cam Ward. I haven't seen a guy like that in years. I don't know. I don't know if you have, but the guy, the things that he does, basically nobody else does. So
Well,
if Carson Beck can be as good not as he was last year, but as he was 2 years ago with Georgia, I think they're very competitive and they'll do very well.
yeah, and just to give some credit to Carson Beck, at least not on, I won't give him any credit on the field, but I did hear, Maui Goa kind of talking about, how he's immersed himself with the team and made his presence felt. And he honestly compared it to Ward in the sense of this guy has shown up, made an effort to get to know all his linemen, take them out to dinner, do things like that. And I know that sounds very simple and basic, but he doesn't have to do that. I've been around people that haven't done that, and most people don't. Most people, quarterbacks especially, kind of go about their business. They might interact a little bit, and then they go home and live their fancy quarterback life. But just to hear that is important to him, and I mean Ward, besides his talent on the field, that guy kept the team together from what he did off the field. They respected him. He was the type of guy where if he came to the sidelines during a tough game, he was able to get them going, kind of get them on board, trusting everything. And it started with that. I mean, I remember having I knew a couple offensive linemen on the team, and they tell me about him taking them out to dinner, him buying them Rolexes, all this stuff, and it works, it's good. And talking about Ward, actually, he had this quote that went viral earlier in the week, and it kind of really resonated with me. And I think anybody would like to hear that, where he said they were asking him basically, what motivates you to wake up this early in the morning and go to training camp? And he said, well, I saw my dad wake up at 4:30 every morning to work a job that he didn't like. So for me to wake up and go do my dream, that shouldn't be a problem. I think that's kind of indicative of why he's such a great football player.
That makes a lot of sense. Another guy that we should mention, Tyler, that is a guy that is going to be special for the Canes, and he's got a couple of more years because he's playing now as a sophomore, and he's been impressive, and he came with great credentials. He can run. He's powerful, and they are impressed with Brown. A lot of people are saying, well, he's got to be the third string running back, which is number one in the country. Number
Yeah.
one as a third string quarterback as a third string running back in the country. So you have that depth at the running back position for the Canes, which is very important also.
Yeah, if he played Division 3, I should have given him a small school athlete back when we were doing that. Now I feel I'm kind of mad at myself. All right, but moving on to another segment, though, another session, a special segment of ours. It's not small school athlete, but one of my favorites is local, or spotlighting a Hispanic athlete, not necessarily local, but just people who have given big impacts into the community, served as role models for young people as well. Even so, who is our Hispanic athlete of the week?
Yes, we're recognizing, outstanding Hispanic athletes, and we'll do this usually in Spanish, which I always come out better when I do it in Spanish. I don't know why, but even though I got these green eyes and born in Alabama like I was. I don't know why is it that my Spanish is so good, but here we go. We're talking about Mano Ginóbili. Mano Ginóbili, uno de los grandes atletas hispanos, sin duda, de todos los tiempos, y nació en Bahía Blanca, Argentina. Hizo popular el Eurostep, sí, el Eurostep que hace Tyler, Bueno, lo hacía previamente Mano Ginóbili y astro de los Spurs de San Antonio desde el 2002 hasta el 2018, 4 veces campeón de la NBA, 2 veces miembro, equipos todos estrellas. En el 2008, campeón en la liga italiana, eso fue campeón en el 2001, 2 veces más valioso en la liga italiana, oro olímpico en el 2004 con Argentina, eso fue en Atenas. En su carrera en San Antonio promedió 13 puntos y 4 asistencias por partido. Sin duda, uno de los grandes atletas hispanos y uno de los mejores basquetbolistas hispanos, si no el mejor de todos los tiempos, Manu Ginóbili.
Moving on to the Marlins, it kind of we've been talking about that for a while. What they're going to do with the trade deadline, how they're going to kind of proceed with this half rebuild, half competing to win. And they started almost immediately after Jesus Sanchez single-handedly willed them to that win. Drove in both of their runs. Very next day gets traded, but they did keep Alcantara. They did keep Cabrera. So how do you think about that? What does that say about the team's view about the rest of this season? It seems like they're going to really try to compete and not just focus on building for the future like they have in past years.
Well, they listened to us a little bit.
Yeah, they
They're
must have.
watching Abuelo and the Nieto. We were saying, hey, listen, your top guys, you got to keep. You try to sign them to long-term contracts. That's the way to go. And, you cannot be getting rid of all your top players all the time. So they were able to keep Alcantara and Cabrera, and that is very important at this time. I think that they have a team that can compete now for the wild card, 6 games out, behind San Diego as we come into the Sunday afternoon game. They already won 6 series in a row, okay? And they beat the Yankees, with great crowds over 34, 35,000 per game. So that is very good. Their pitching is top of the line. You look at Perez, you look at Alcantara, and Cabrera, and even Quantrill is pitching at a high level. Junk has done the job for them. Their bullpen is very strong, and right now you win with good bullpens. That's why the Yankees made the trade that they made. They needed help in the bullpen, and now pitchers throw 5, 6 innings, and then you need that strong bullpen to take you to the promised land. So they're doing the job. They're hitting, keeps going. They're going to be in the battle. They're going to be in a position to maybe get to the wild card. Right now, they're playing at the highest level that you can play. They had a tremendous month of July. So they now just follow up August and September. So the thing looks great. The manager is doing an excellent job. So this is a team that was expected to be maybe last in the division. And they're clearly three in the division, number three in the division now, with the possibility of making it to the wild card. You cannot expect more from this team. A lot of young players playing at a very high level, and you see that energy, and you see that they like each other, Tyler. They have that great relationship going, and that in anything, in any sport, when you have that, Tyler, and you know that you played in teams in different sports, when you get that going, you're tough to beat.
Yeah, then take with this what you will. But I had two separate conversations. One with a friend of mine who's a younger guy my age, and this kid's gone. I mean, he goes to several Marlins games a year since he was a child, so he's probably approaching 100 Marlins games by now. Said that game Friday night was the best game he's ever been to. And I was like, you know what? He's a young guy. Maybe he's being, a prisoner of the moment, a little too positive. Then I'm at the gym talking to a guy who's been to, it was at the 2003 World Series, the 1997 World Series. Says that was the best game he had been to since that 2003 game. It was just the crowd, the way it ended, and all that stuff. He said was just completely electric. So it seems like not just a positive sign from the players of this team, but the fans are really starting to get on board and kind of recognize that it seems like they're building to something here. And you're our soccer expert, so I can't
Oh,
provide
I
much
am. I
insight on
am.
this.
Okay, I didn't know that. Oh, great. I'm the soccer
Well,
expert. Well, Inter Miami was being picked as one of the favorites to win the League's Cup. And they're still one of the favorites, but not as much now because, Messi got hurt in the tie, and then they won the penalty kick competition. They won on penalty kicks versus Necaxa after a 2-2 tie Saturday night. So, he gets hurt early in the game, around the eighth or ninth minute. So now there's a question mark: will he be available in the middle of the week for the last game in that first round of the League's Cup? They got 5 points now, so they're still in the competition, and they might need 8 points. They might need a win to actually make it, and they might win and they might not make it because only the top four teams from each group, the Mexican League group and the MLS group, only four teams make it to the quarterfinals. So it's not for sure that they're going to make it. So it gets tougher, and it shows the importance of having a great player and not having him available. It can really hurt you. So they're in the situation that right now, that they're in that situation right now. Rodrigo de Paul had a very good game, had 2 assists in that 2-2 tie. And so Rodrigo de Paul is being a factor. He runs, you know, up and down the field for 90 minutes, and you always want a guy like that on your club. So you have to be excited about Rodrigo de Paul, and really more exciting than that is the fact that basically it's not official, Tyler, but I think it might be announced this coming week now. An agreement with Messi. They basically have an agreement on paper. It needs to be signed. There's a few more details, but of course, yeah, one of the things that Messi was waiting for was whether we're going to get, some help. And in the case of Rodrigo de Paul, he got big help. There might be another guy coming in, a defender, Mark Bartra, uh, from Real Betis. He played with Messi at Barcelona. So they have that relationship already established. 34-year-old, a very good player. Of course, getting a little older, but that's the situation with some of the players with Inter Miami. So they still have a shot, definitely with the League's Cup. But more importantly, you want to have the nucleus, the team that you want, and this guy Bartra might be part of it to try to win the MLS title, which is really the number one goal for this team at this time.
Moving on to our last special segment. We actually got two more special segments, but this is our fantasy football sleeper segment. And I actually had one of my players from my league kind of reach out to me and was like, you're giving me all the answers to this, man. I play in the same league as you, and he's kind of seeing who to pick, so he might take a few from me. So he's going to be blocked now. He can't see any of this. But for the rest of you, I will be giving you some sleepers, some hints, as long as you're not in my league. This is a guy who was an all-pro player, was an all-rookie player. So you've heard of him if you cover football or if you follow football on a regular basis. But past 2 years, kind of taking a hit statistically. It's Calvin Ridley. And when I say taking a hit statistically, he's still caught 1,000 yards over the past 2 seasons. It's really more of the targets and the receptions that have kind of dropped, but still been the team's number one receiver with Tennessee last year. Before that, he was with Jacksonville, and just kind of more of a quarterback issue is what I was associating it with. Like I said, this is somebody who I kind of study. This is somebody who I tell my young receivers to study, and he's one of the best route runners in the NFL. He has been for almost 10 years now. You can't see somebody change direction, start and stop as fast as they do. And like I said, it was just kind of an issue of quarterbacks not having the right person to throw them the ball, going to new systems year after year, not really having that time to develop chemistry. But I mean, he has been tearing it up in training camp with Cam Ward over in Tennessee, and Cam Ward needs a number one receiver. We saw how much he likes to kind of find somebody and rely on them once he had Restrepo last year, and I think Ridley can be that guy for him, especially being such a great route runner. That's somebody who you can confidently say is going to be open a lot of the time, somebody who you can throw the ball to without really worrying too much about separation, and that's somebody who I think might slip just a little bit due to a little bit of decline in production. But if you know anything about this, you know that young quarterback, they really find somebody and they zero in on them. They find the first guy they can trust, and they just keep feeding him. So Ridley, I think, is going to be that guy.
Interesting, interesting. I'll write that down if I'm going to enter one of the leagues. I have not decided yet, but if I do, I'll keep that in mind, Tyler. So are you ready for the great segment to end the podcast? Remember to follow us, very important, on YouTube. We need you to sign up on YouTube. We need to add some of you guys to our podcast. So sign up in YouTube. Also follow us on Facebook. We're on TikTok, everywhere. Instagram, Miami Sports Minute during the week, keeping you up to date with what's going on within Miami sports, and then our podcast, Abuelo and the Nieto, usually on the weekends, and also, having covering all the subject matter related to Miami sports. Um, Tyler, Miami sports trivia. This is one that you should be able to handle. When was the last time that the Dolphins won a playoff game, and who was it against? Who did they beat? Can't hear you.
The last time the Dolphins won a playoff game was in 2000, and it was, I can't tell you, maybe I'll
Well, you
guess.
got it. You got it.
I know it was Lamar Smith running for a bunch of touchdowns. So I can tell you that part. And I can also tell you that for some reason the game wasn't locally televised, even though I wasn't born yet. I know that, and that makes no sense. It kind of shows how much sports media is growing, I guess.
You weren't
People
born. I thought you were like 40 years old, man. Oh, you're much younger. You're much younger. Okay.
with this scratchy voice I have today, maybe that's why you think I'm 40. But no, 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 no. That's unfortunately, I try to be an unbiased fan, but my love for that team, I'm pretty open about it, and I've never seen them win a playoff game. It's heartbreaking every year. I hope I will be able to see it while you're still
You
calling the
will. You
games.
will soon. You will soon. That was 2000. You were right. It was against the Colts, Tyler, against the Colts, and the Indianapolis Colts. They beat them 23-17. That was the last time the Dolphins won a playoff game. They've been to the playoffs, of course, quite a few times after that. They were in the playoffs a couple of years ago, and hopefully they'll be in the playoffs again this season. What do you have for me, Tyler?
Another Marlins question, just over for the sake of them keeping those two young pitchers, we might as or star young pitchers, might as well celebrate that kind of that field. So my question for you is, which Marlins player throughout their career with the team had the most strikeouts?
Which pitcher
Yes,
has the most strikeouts?
yes.
Is
So
it because of the longevity, Nolasco?
there you go. Okay, first try.
Well, 2 weeks in a row, Tyler. 2 weeks in a row. The old man Abuelo has done it. I'm gonna celebrate. I'm gonna get a cake and some candles now to celebrate, because this doesn't happen very often. 2 weeks in a row.
That's right. I don't even want to say you got lucky. That was a good question there, whether it was longevity or yeah. And then Nolasco spent, also pitched the most games for this team still, and I think he's still playing in the Mexican League. So yeah, that guy had a decent long career. It was never a star, but I'd say a reliable player for sure.
Definitely. So this is it, Tyler. Number 47, Abuelo and the Nieto. Follow us on social media. We're everywhere. There is the Nieto, the young guy. Don't listen to me. He's not even close to 40. And the old man over here, Abuelo. And we talk Miami sports. Hasta luego. Arrivederci.